Welcome to SEC Football Live here, of course, on the 440 Sports Network, as well as that SEC podcast across both YouTube pages. You can get us on a podcast form as well. Yes, Bo, Braden's head is probably spinning with the Vrabel news. Yes, there are actually two live shows happening at one time on my company's YouTube page right now because Mike Vrabel has been fired. I am wearing my Mike Vrabel shirt. Got to coach better, got to play better. That is his motto. No longer, apparently, for the Tennessee Titans. So future head football coach Jim Harbaugh and the reigning national champion Michigan Wolverines head coach, probably going to be the next head coach here in Nashville, Tennessee. So we are live across all platforms. Jump on over to 440 Sports YouTube page. Give us a subscription. We really appreciate it. I have a deep dive into the Oklahoma Sooners coming up this week over there on the YouTube page. We had a lot of conversation about quarterback Jackson Arnold, their NIL structure, how well they're recruiting, and sort of the evolution of the program and how prepared they are for what could be an incredibly difficult SEC schedule. Michael, I don't know if you know this, but it is not necessarily the best time for you to join the SEC and for your quote-unquote easy games to be Ole Miss, Missouri, and Tennessee. So it's going to be a real interesting year for Oklahoma, but jump on over to the 440 Sports YouTube page, give us a sub, and we really appreciate it. We'll take all questions today on the show.
Who's this Oklahoma guy you got? I'm still trying to learn all the Oklahoma people.
So Josh McQuiston is a good friend of mine, known him for a long time. He is the publisher of Soonerscoop.com, nice. Has been covering the Sooners for over 20 years, and I think you guys are going to learn a lot about Oklahoma and sort of the background, their front seven, the quarterback, not only just the 2024 team, but sort of the state of the program. So go ahead and that'll be up on the YouTube page coming up this week. So please check that out. We've already conducted that interview.
Do we have a date that I can tune in and view that?
Thursday.
Thursday?
No,
okay.
it'll be up probably Wednesday of this week, depending on when you're listening to this. It'll be up soon. That's all I can tell you is it'll be up soon.
Okay, because I enjoyed. I told you last time. I think Jeff Ketchum's Texas Orange Bloods. That was great. So it's not even my channel. I recommend it. I can't wait to see this one, and I'm trying to soak up as much Texas and Oklahoma knowledge as I possibly can because I have so little.
And we are going to have some deep dives into every team across the conference, but in particular, we started with Texas and Oklahoma. So go check that out. Is Oklahoma ready for SEC competition? You'll find out. But some very positive signs about the coach and about the quarterback. Not so positive signs, Mike, about the schedule. I think there are some actual real expectations there from Oklahoma. We'll get to our preseason rankings, the Athlon Sports, which I also work for. The Athlon Sports preseason magazine top 25 is out, of course, for the early 2024. What did we learn about college football philosophically, where offenses and defenses are going based on Michigan's national championship win on Monday evening? Quidshot Junkins, big news there going into the portal, and of course announcing that he's going to go to Ohio State literally 2 minutes after Michigan won the national championship. I found that to be utterly fascinating.
That reminds me, I can't remember the exact recruit, Braden, but I think it was Georgia or Alabama because they're in it every damn time. But it was one of them was in the championship, and then the other one landed like a 5-star quarterback, and they just had to announce it during the game. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, we're coming for you.
Yes, it was just hilarious. Like it's tremendous Big Ten awareness from an SEC running back is what it is. I give Judkins a lot of credit, but that's a lot. That means a lot for Ole Miss, and so we'll get to there. And then basically, who could be this year's Washington? Can anybody be this year's TCU or Washington in the SEC? I have a theory on that. I know you and I have argued about the gap in talent closing in this conference. But just did you learn anything at all about college football? We've discussed some big picture trends on this show. Offensive linemen are tougher to develop. Defenses are maybe having a resurgence in the game. Certainly the defense beat the quarterback on Monday night. I don't know if there's anything you learned or took away from Michigan's story becoming the national champion this year. I don't know. Is there anything you learned at all from the game?
Well, apparently, it doesn't matter if you cheat, lie, or steal. You still get rewarded. I thought we had moved away from that. I know we have in the SEC, but apparently they have not in the Big Ten. So I learned that, no repercussions for scandals. I got you.
You do know that Hugh Freeze is a coach in our conference, right?
Yeah, well, he didn't succeed, did he? And both his coordinators gone. How about that? So karma right there. But, That was a tough game to watch, Braden. I mean, without these SEC athletes in it, looked like Michigan was going to blow them out, and then they forgot they could run the ball for some reason. I don't know. It was just, to me, that was not very enjoyable. I appreciate the fact the game was relatively close going into the fourth quarter. I thought Washington stood a shot, but it did. I don't know. I don't want to take away from those teams because they both went undefeated, but it felt like neither one was like doing what they had to do to win that damn game.
No, I agree. Now I'll pander because I know you like a good pandering, and I'll do some pandering here. And that is, I think, as I said on December 3rd when the playoffs were announced, I think Georgia would have beaten both those teams last night had they played in that game.
Hell yeah.
And that is not an SEC homer take. You guys know me. Michigan is a deserving champion. The cheating line is hilarious and cute for you to use, but like they didn't cheat any when they beat Penn State and Ohio State and Alabama and Washington. They are a worthy national champion.
Do you know that?
Yeah, they got caught, they got punished, they paid their price, and they moved on. We do this in the SEC. Cam Newton, we do this all the time in the SEC. This is not new, strange territory. In fact, I think it's very evolved of Jim Harbaugh in Michigan to act like an SEC team. Like we've been perfecting
I think it was
the
Mississippi
ethical
State that cheated with Cam Newton, and he said, "I don't want any part of that. I'm going to Auburn, and I'm going to do the deed." And that's what he did
for $0.
Exactly.
180 grand from Mississippi State, $0 from Auburn. That's what you want me to believe. Look, I'm not going to get into the cheat or didn't cheat. Like the first 3-game suspension was pretty stupid. It's everybody. You lie to the NCAA, you get caught. The NCAA acts like a pissed off babysitter.
Yeah.
The second one, again, I have talked to head coaches, sitting Power 5 head coaches that say that Michigan did not gain much of an advantage at all. The rule the NCAA put in place, which is that you cannot fly people to scout in person, had nothing to do with competitive advantage because you can get all the signs off of the coach's tape. It's about financial advantage, and it was put in place by the NCAA because smaller schools couldn't afford to fly people all over the country. That's all it was. It had nothing to do with actually stealing signs. Now, I think coaches do all kinds of crazy shit with resources and time that they think is going to help them win, and really they're just paranoid, schizophrenic egomaniacs. I mean, otherwise, why would Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and all these guys keep their practices closed? Like the NFL doesn't close practices. It doesn't affect wins and losses in the NFL. So
right.
There's no asterisk here. Michigan is your champion. But ultimately, I am curious because I think what I took away from this is that, number one, Michigan got the SEC memo, which is this is how you have to win. Pay players, get talent, build an experienced roster, and work your way to the top. That's what Georgia had to do against Alabama, and they did it. Michigan did it as well. The other big takeaway is, are we going back to a different type of football? To some degree. We're never going to go all the way back. But are we going back to, I'm not going to say 3 yards cloud of dust, bully ball, whatever you want to call it. But Georgia, while they were electric on offense, they're not exactly Joe Burrow and LSU. So we've had 3 consecutive national champions where it is about defense and physicality and running the football and playing a little bit more old school. Do you think we are seeing a defensive resurgence in the game of football?
No, not necessarily. I mean, wouldn't A&M have been really good the last couple of years if that was the case? I'm trying to think of teams in the Heisman Trophy winner. They didn't play a damn lick of defense. Of course, they didn't. They fell short of expectations, so maybe that's why.
You're making the case for me.
But I mean, wasn't Alabama? I don't know. They had a really good defense. They didn't get it done.
But they won the SEC championship.
Yeah, because Georgia gave it to them, that day. But
aren't Georgia and Alabama both versions of the same? Like they're kind of similar versions of each other.
I mean, there's a reason, Braden, that these Kirby Smart and Nick Saban want every guy that's 6'8", 400 pounds. Because there's only so many of them. So
6'8", 400. Wow.
Well, exactly. I mean, there's a couple guys. I mean, that left tackle for Alabama, he can't move, but he's a damn Hulk out there. You know what I mean? There's just not many of those dudes out there, and that's why Georgia and Alabama get so many of them, because they are difference makers. And I don't know. I mean, last time I checked, Tennessee was really good 2 years ago because they had an elite offense.
Yeah, didn't get it done. You keep making my case for me. They're not getting it done because they couldn't stop Spencer Rattler. Couldn't stop Spencer Rattler.
Is 11 wins. That's getting it done, brother. In college football.
SH is right.
Ole Miss has won more games in the SEC than anybody short of Georgia and Alabama the last 3 years. And they're not doing it because of defense. They're doing it because of offense.
I agree. And what were the scores of the games against the best teams? They got blown out. They got their ass whipped by Georgia and Alabama this year.
But we can't just say there's 2 winners and then 130 losers in sports. That's not.
I'm talking about championship level football. That's what I'm asking about. SH says it. Teams with the best defensive lines have won the last 3 championships. That's just true. Michigan had Michael Penix did not play a good game on Monday night, but ultimately, look at how the NFL is playing in defense. They're playing 2 high safety looks because they got to stop these quote-unquote super quarterbacks.
I think A&M's defensive line is better than all these.
Not this year. I mean, they didn't live up to expectations. They have, although I do love
some monsters there.
Cooper, the linebacker, was really, really good.
They've all hit the portal, but they were there.
I mean, again,
Texas defensive line was elite, was it not? I'd rather have Texas D line than Michigan's.
I think it's debatable. I don't think Texas's secondary was atrocious, though, and it got exposed.
Yeah, but you said defensive line.
That's what SH says. I'm talking about philosophically. We have seen 3 straight champions that play an older school type of football. In the NFL, you're seeing defenses adjust to these quote-unquote super quarterbacks, the way Mahomes and Burrow and all these guys play. You look at Clemson, those teams with Trevor Lawrence. They also had one of the best defensive lines in all of college football. Why is Oklahoma never able to be successful in a playoff situation in the last 10 years? Because they don't have the dogs in the front 7. So I just am like, I think football is cyclical. I think we have these sort of swings of the pendulum where we go, Nick Saban was using bully ball to win championships, and then he wanted to change the rules. And then he said, all right, screw you guys. I'll adapt to the rules, but I'm going to beat you at your own game. And then Alabama evolved. They got smaller players on defense. They got quicker on offense, and they went on and won a bunch of championships. But now Georgia's swinging it back the other way. Michigan's swinging it back the other way. I don't know.
We got some elite Florida fans, including Michael Riley. Tennessee will beat Michigan this year. He's a Florida fan. He's not a Tennessee fan. Liquid Flame says you can still win a championship with average defense, elite offense. Joe Burrow, I don't see you referencing that year. Their defense was not elite. It was all offense.
That's what I'm saying. Have we swung back from that moment? Because I would put Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence and those teams.
And I think the COVID year, Alabama, all defenses were awful, seemingly.
COVID's hard to evaluate. Also, that Alabama offense had 8 NFL players on it. So you could, yes, of course, a team can be better.
Stetson Bennett,
than any defense.
Awesome. I'm kidding, but
I think again, you're making my point for me.
He was clutch.
He was great.
Clutch.
And Georgia's offense was not slow and boring and unexplosive. They were great, but they are again, I'm just asking if we think it's swinging, because you mentioned Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss is my best argument in this. Sure, you can win 8, 9, 10, maybe even a bowl game with a great offense. But if you have nothing on the other side and in the trenches you cannot win consistently against the best teams, I don't think you can win the national championship. I don't. Which is why TCU, if you want to ask who in the SEC could be TCU or Washington, it's very clearly Missouri and Ole Miss this year in 2024. It's, to me, unless you've got another answer.
Of course, Tennessee, brother, with Nico.
Tennessee, fine, that's fine. And if Nico is very, very good, they're a playoff contender.
Well, I asked you about that, to prep for this one, but also I thought of another caveat to it. What do you think is the best method with this portal NIL era? Is it to go out like a Ole Miss, and now we're seeing Missouri do it as well, and hit free agency? They're not alone. I don't want to. Texas A&M's added about 20 players since Thursday. Of course, different situation, new coach and all that. But what is the better method, do you think? Going out and hitting free agency, or like a Georgia? Of course, Georgia's an outlier because they're so damn good anyway. But Tennessee, they have invested a lot. I'm seeing a lot of these fans, Braden. They're like, why in the hell aren't we spending like Ole Miss? Well, Tennessee is, but people don't see it because you're bringing back your offensive line. You're bringing back your defensive line. You're spending. It's almost like in NFL, you can go free agency, or you can spend all your salary cap on retaining players. What do you think is the better method to building a championship college program?
I still think, I almost think from a math standpoint, it's impossible to build a 44 player, like two deep, right? On offense and defense, like 22 on offense, 22 on defense, which really it's more about like 60, 65 players because you got 85 scholarships. I just don't think you physically can do the math in the portal that way. I think you have to build and develop the vast majority of your roster and then supplement with key portal pieces. Like Texas is built almost exclusively through recruiting with some really big transfer pieces mixed in there. Former Georgia Bulldog, Adonai Mitchell, like big important piece. But he's next to Xavier Worthy and Quinn Ewers, which I know Quinn went to Ohio State, but that was only because of NIL rules. He's basically a Texas signee. I think you have to blend in the spots. I don't think you can do, like, what makes Missouri more interesting to me than Ole Miss, especially with Quinshad Junkins leaving Ole Miss, is that I think Eli Drinkwitz has recruited a foundational level better than Lane Kiffin. Do you think I'm wrong on that?
No, I'm just laughing at this guy. So why did A&M take all of Florida's garbage defensive players? Thanks.
That's a valid question.
Well, because they need depth. They just hired Jay Bateman from Florida, so he probably was like, "This guy's worth a shit. This guy is." So
don't you agree that you still have like Michigan is built largely, like, look at every national champion in the last, again, I'm not saying that everything in the past is going to be forward looking, as we've argued many times, but every national champion builds through recruiting. Washington's average recruiting ranking is 34th over the last 5 years. TCU's last year, ironically, was 34th over the previous 5 years. You got to be in the top 12 in recruiting to win national championships.
I feel like we have this argument every week.
I know.
I mean, we're going to a new format. I don't care what any of the numbers say, because we don't know, because it's a new era. And that's why I'm fired up if I'm a Missouri fan, if I'm an Ole Miss fan, I'm a Tennessee fan.
Yeah.
That we don't know how all this is going to translate to a 12-team playoff. And not only that, NIL transfer portal, because everyone just assumed Alabama and Georgia, they're just going to continue to dominate. And it's clearly they've not fallen off, but they just thought they were just going to buy, all of the best players from Kansas or I don't know, but wherever, even Power 5, they were going to, you got an all Big 12 guy, he's ours now. That's not how it's worked out. I think it's hurt Alabama and Georgia, because I think their depth, they have elite players on their bench that are not playing that can transfer to a Missouri, a Tennessee, Ohio State, and get on the field.
I don't disagree with the premise. I still think if you're Ole Miss, and I agree that Ole Miss, Missouri, and Tennessee, and if you look at our preseason rankings, we'll get to where they're ranked in just a second, but Ole Miss, Missouri, and Tennessee, those three schools, in my opinion, are sort of the challengers to the top tier in the SEC, which right now in the preseason rankings, number one in our preseason rankings in the country is Georgia. Number 2 is Alabama, and number 3 is Texas. Number 4 is Michigan. Number 5 is Ohio State. 6 is Oregon. But Ole Miss and Missouri are 7 and 8. And then Penn State 9, Notre Dame 10. Tennessee's at 11, right outside. Oklahoma's at 12, right outside. The difference between Ole Miss and Missouri in terms of 1 to 85 depth, I don't think you can make that up in the portal. I do agree that you spread out, like Alabama's, like the reason they're not as dominant as they've been, I think in part is because of Kirby Smart in Georgia. I think that's just part of it. They've taken a lot of the players that Alabama would have normally gotten. And to say that there are stars in the 2 deep on Alabama and Georgia that aren't playing is not a different thing than any other era of college football. And this year,
it's different now because you can leave immediately and play at another school.
That's been a couple years, and Ole Miss was not competitive this year with a very good team against the 2 teams that had better players.
Who's their quarterback?
What?
He's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. He was at Southern Cal. Now he's a starting quarterback at Ole Miss and was eligible right away.
Right, but that was 2 years ago, though. I'm not sure what your point is. They were in his second year as the starter.
Because he wasn't playing, he wasn't going to be the starter at Southern Cal, so he transferred and is playing immediately.
Okay. I don't understand. Cam Newton was a transfer. Jacob Coker was a transfer. Joe Burrow was a transfer. I don't understand your point. Because you can't win a championship with one quarterback.
Guys are not going to wait 3-4 years to wait their turn anymore. Why am I going to wait at Georgia when I can go play tomorrow? Brock Vandegrift, I'm going to go play tomorrow at Kentucky.
Well, but he's not the starter. They already have. How does that hurt Georgia if Carson Beck is the starting quarterback? I don't understand.
You get into a deep SEC. You get into a playoff run. Carson Beck gets a concussion. We're fucked because we got no backup.
I mean,
that's where it's going to kill you?
Jackson. I mean, that's not true. Don't they have another 5-star behind him? Carson Beck waited his turn and got the job. Stetson Bennett waited his turn. Michigan is an example of guys all coming back that are all veterans that decided to wait their turn and won a national championship because of it. I don't think you can go. I'm tired of having this argument with you because we just don't know. But I don't think you can build an entire roster that competes for championships at the championship level with transfers. You can't. I think you can supplement and you can find a good quarterback, certainly. But you can't even find offensive linemen on the recruiting trail right now, much less offensive linemen in the portal. It doesn't work. So I think Ole Miss,
there's
Missouri,
a couple.
Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee. Yeah, but you need like 11 offensive linemen.
Colorado, they just signed like 20, didn't they?
Yeah, and look how fucking shitty their offensive line was last year. Again, you keep making my point for me.
Tennessee's they're trying to get every guy that gets in the portal has got like 30 offers on the offensive line.
And Hobson makes a good point. Bama had like 15 go into the portal, and 7 defensive starters are going to go to the draft. You can't plug that with freshmen. I completely agree. But if you have 3 years of freshmen waiting and you're developing them, and even if you lose half of them, you sign, let's say you sign 4 offensive linemen a year and you've got 12 offensive linemen and 6 of them leave, you should still have 2 or 3 or 4 starters in there. Then you bring in a portal guy and you've got your 5th starter and you're pretty good because the rest of your roster is still loaded. The question is, can you win? I don't think there's a question about getting into the playoff. If Nico is good for Tennessee, Tennessee can get into the playoff. If Jackson Darnold is good for Oklahoma, even though their schedule is nasty, Oklahoma can get into the playoff. Missouri and Ole Miss can get into the playoff. Things go right for those teams? Absolutely. Texas can get into the playoff. Georgia and Alabama can obviously get into the playoff. The question is, can you win 3 or 4 games against teams that have 5-star dudes everywhere? And we've had this debate, and you continue to say that you can, and there's never been a moment in time where that's been possible. I don't see how.
Starts today. New era, new format.
Well, you need to, if you're going to do it in your Ole Miss, you got to keep your fucking 5-star running back at home. Okay, you can't lose superstar.
I've said that since day one, and they jumped on me, even though I've been touting up. You could say great things about Ole Miss for 3 weeks, and then you criticize them, and then they're like, "You fucking guy, you don't know shit." You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. Dell said, "Stop picking on my Ole Miss squad, Brady." I'm very excited about what Ole Miss is trying to do. They are going for it, which is fascinating. It's a fascinating new thing. To your point,
I love it.
Mike. I think it's great too. I think Missouri, they're losing a little bit more to graduation, but I think Missouri's a fascinating team. Tennessee is mostly going to be about how special is Nico, how quickly can he be special. If he's special right away, they're competing for a playoff spot. If he has some growing pains, which is possible, then they're probably more of like an 8 or 9 win team, and then the next year they're clearly a playoff team.
I'm fascinated to see this 12-team format. How many SEC? Can we get half the field? Can we get the complete Final Four SEC? And I realize that's not going to be very realistic annually or anything, but more than that, Braden,
it might
is
be.
how these coaches are going to get judged. And I'm not sitting here crying for these millionaires, but they're going to be judged harshly if they don't make the field. And I'm looking at guys like Brian Kelly, who's won 20 games in his first 2 years. I think 95% of the country would take that. If he doesn't make the playoff next year, they're going to be on his ass. I think Mike Elko's got like 2 years to get in the playoff. They're going to be on his. Heupel, Kiffin, on and on. I mean, basically all of them. Drink. I mean, just playoff or bust for all these guys now. And how many coaches we going to fire because they don't make the playoff?
Too many.
Yeah.
Too many. To your point, though, about the rankings. So Athlon Sports preseason rankings, we put these together. It is not going to be where our magazine is when we put it out in April and March or April and May. But number 1 in the country, Georgia. Number 2, Alabama. Number 3, Texas. That is SEC, top 3. Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon. Big Ten at 4, 5, and 6. We have Ole Miss at 7 and Missouri at 8. I would switch that. I would have Missouri at 7, Ole Miss at 8, especially after the Judkins news. Penn State at 9, Notre Dame 10, Tennessee 11, Oklahoma 12, Clemson 13, and LSU 14. So LSU is a preseason, according to us, just for now. Things will change. but LSU is preseason number 14, and Oklahoma is preseason number 12. They are 7th and 8th in the SEC standings, according to these rankings. So while they might get 5, 6, maybe even a 7th team into the playoff, which seems unlikely just based on like wins and losses, I think that's going to be hard. Like you're going to have some like this, to your point.
Look at Jeff here. He's saying Napier better make the playoff. I'm sitting here saying, we got to make a bowl game here, Jeff. Come on.
What's fun? What's going to be really interesting is like if Auburn or LSU or Texas A&M, they're like 9, or even Tennessee, they're like 9 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
But their losses are to, Georgia and Alabama, let's say, and they lose one other game, and then somebody in the Big 12 has a bunch of wins over UCF, Iowa State, Kansas, and Houston, and they have a 10-2 record or an 11-1 record, and the 9-3 team gets left out, even though it seems pretty obvious that the 9-3 team is better. That's where you're going to have a really tricky decision if you're an athletic director, right? Like,
yeah,
well, we're clearly better than those two teams that made the playoff, but because we play in the SEC, life in the SEC is hard. 16 teams.
Do you think that helps? I think it's Sankey, as obvious, and the Big Ten, whoever the hell's running that, but they're pushing now. Let's do away with automatic bids. The best.
Oh yeah,
that's clearly why they're pushing that, right? Because they don't want to get squeezed out. We don't want a 9-3 elite team to get pushed out for some bullshit Big 12 team, right?
No, I agree. It's hard to call a team that's 9-3 elite, but that's not the standard anymore. Like the standard to get into the 4-team playoff was elite. You had to be elite.
Well, what if Nico's misses 2 of those losses and the other one was a 1-point loss at Georgia? That's it. You could be elite.
Well, I don't know. Again, if you lose 3 games, you're not elite. But that's not the standard. The standard to get into the playoff now is really, really good, not elite. You don't have to be elite to get in. You just need to be really, really, really good. Yeah, 128 team playoff. It's called college football. Also, I think we're at 135 now, but don't worry about that. I think it is, to Sankey's point, the reason he wants to do away with automatic bids is that the Pac-12 currently has one. And is currently not a conference. so they want to reduce it to 5 so that the 5 conferences each get one, 4 power conferences, and then the group of 5 gets one. So that does open up an at-large spot for probably an SEC or Big Ten team to get in there. So
yeah. And what did you think? I see in the comments someone was asking us. I think it was Jackson. Shout out Jackson. Did you see Georgia added UNLV quarterback? Their starting quarterback just won Mountain West Freshman of the Year. Had an outstanding season. They just went to Georgia, which is pretty wild because they obviously got Carson Beck back, Gunnar Stockton. They just signed a top recruit. I get it. You want to have depth, but I feel like you're going to run off someone.
Well, maybe someone leaves, but what you want if you're Kirby Smart is for
elite competition.
Yeah, you want the 3 guys to compete, knowing that this is Beck's last year. 3 guys compete for the starting job for next year.
Yeah,
one guy transfers, 1 guy gets the job, 1 guy's the backup, and that's a pretty standard procedure right now in college football, honestly.
Well, in the history of the game, it is, but not. I mean, like at Tennessee, they have Nico. I don't even think they have the backup is a walk-on. That's playing with fire right there.
I don't disagree with you,
but I don't think it's their fault. It's just like it's kind of like this is the era we're in, where if I ain't playing, I'm taking off.
I agree. I think at quarterback, it's always kind of been like that. I think the difference is going to be the other positions. And again, all you have to do is just trim the top 5% off Alabama and Georgia to make it more competitive in the playoff. But I still think the teams that can go, like, imagine what the Ole Miss is. Let's use Missouri since we've been talking about Ole Miss. Let's use Missouri. Let's say Missouri goes 10-2 again, and they are exactly kind of where they were this year. They're like the 8 seed. They're going to play 8-9 matchup. So in this case, it would have been can't do that.
Let's throw it up the schedule for people.
Well, let's just say they're 10-2 and they finish 8th or 9th, and they play in an 8-9 matchup. Okay, so that means they're going to have to. In this year's matchup, it was Ohio State, but let's call it Penn State. Let's just say Penn State. So in week 1 of the playoff, you got to beat Penn State. From a talent perspective, Penn State might be a slight bit better, but I would take Missouri to win that game. I think, Ole Miss showed us that. I would take Missouri to win that game. Okay, so you beat Penn State. That's one game. Now you go to the second round. And now as the 8 or 9 seed, you know who you're playing? You're playing Michigan, week 1. Number 1 seed, you're playing Michigan as an 8-9 team. So then let's say hypothetically, the team that just went 15-0 and was the most dominant team in college football, even though Georgia might be better, then you have to play them in a neutral site game. You beat them. Let's say, oh my God, holy cow, you've beaten Penn State and you beat Michigan. Next team up, you got to play. Probably Georgia or Alabama again. And we saw what happened with Missouri played Georgia pretty well in Athens.
I don't see a loss there. What's your point?
It is. So then you beat them, and then you got to play another one. And so ultimately, it's never about getting into the playoff. It is about the grind of the 4 games and winning a national championship that way. And I
look at this. Have you seen this? So the season is going to run to August 24th to January 20th. I feel bad for the players that have to play that, but it's going to be awesome.
Pay them.
Oh yeah.
You want to know how you make bowl games matter and opt-outs stop and maybe even the transfer portal to calm down a little bit? Make them all employees. Put in place a revenue sharing agreement, which is going to happen, and make them employees, and you solve all these problems.
Because how awesome is this going to be, though, Braden? December 20th through the 21st, first round games.
I'm in.
New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, bunch of games. The 9th, the 10th, the 20th. Oh, baby. And it's all going to be SEC.
Well, it'll all be SEC and Big Ten with it'll be Clemson, Florida State, and one other team. But otherwise, it's going to be almost all Big Ten and SEC. So we'll see. And I guess Notre Dame will get in occasionally. They'll be in the top 12, and they might win a game or two.
They should go to the G5 playoff.
But there's no way you can tell me that Notre Dame is just as talented as Ole Miss and Missouri, and they are never able to win the big game in the big moment. And I don't know. Nico is a difference maker because guess what? Tennessee can recruit in the top 12. And if you can recruit in the top 12 and then mix in a star quarterback, you can win. You can win the whole thing.
Mark's asking, are they still doing conference champions, automatic qualifiers? Have they done away with that? I don't know the answer.
Well, they're going to probably vote on these rules, and now that it's past the 2023 season, they don't need a specific threshold to vote. The rules can be changed by fewer votes, which is a good thing. Which means basically the Big Ten and the SEC will decide this, and because they have the teams that mostly want to get in, what's going to happen right now? You started with 6 automatics, 5 Power 5, and the highest rated G5. That is going to drop to 5 automatics and the highest and 3 Big 12, SEC, Big 10, ACC will all get an automatic bid. The champion will get in. Then there will be the highest rated G5, which will probably be the 12th seed every year. So then you have teams 5 through 11 that will be at large bids. And those 5 through 11 are where we assume the SEC picks up 3, the Big 10 picks up 2, and then there's maybe one other good team that slips in there.
Do we have to put a G5 in? I mean, I hope they don't do that bullshit. Like if there's one that's like firmly in the top 5 or 6, so it's like for some reason looks elite, I'm fine with that. But let's not put in the 26th best team in the country because we got to have one of these children in here. You know what I mean? That's just going to get obliterated by some SEC team in the first round.
I think for every Liberty versus Oregon this year, I think it was Hawaii against Georgia. I think in 2007, you had Cincinnati against Tebow's Florida team. There's been a handful of games where they got blown out, but didn't Auburn lose to UCF? Didn't Oklahoma lose to Boise State? Tulane beat USC. So there are plenty of good G5 teams that can pull the upset. Now, again, I would argue bowl games don't count, so whatever. But I think throwing a bone to the little guy is what makes college football fun. So I disagree with that. But they are not one of the 12.
Live. What the hell are you talking? What are you talking about here?
I can be a fan of all college football.
You think Tulane can win the SEC?
Tulane almost beat Ole Miss without their starting quarterback. Yep. No, they can't win although Tulane does have it. Doesn't Tulane have an SEC championship? I think they do.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they do.
200 years ago.
Can you name? I think Sewannee's record in the SEC was 0-41. The University of the South, 0-41 all time in SEC play. I think Georgia Tech has an SEC championship as well.
Braden, I don't know if you're a video gamer at all, but I know you're very plugged in. Do you have any information on this damn video game? That was basically the main reason I watched that game last night. I was told there was going to be some tease, national media reporting it.
No,
people that cover this damn game were reporting it, and we got nothing. Can you give us a glimmer of hope on any of this?
J.M. Jones, I think Missouri would play Michigan well. I don't think they would beat that Michigan team. So that's. I think y'all got to give the 15-0 national champ a little bit more respect than you're giving them. But
Mizzou would have been 15-0 in the Big Ten.
Sure,
saw
buddy.
that.
Sure, buddy. Did you watch how many points they scored in the first 3 quarters against Ohio State, who didn't play with their best players, quarterback? Anyway, that was brilliant marketing by EA Sports, in my opinion.
They didn't do anything.
I know. That's what I'm saying. They Cousin Shane on the cover would be fucking awesome. No, I think they just planted some seeds with some college football folk, and people are so obsessed with this game coming out. And I'm not going to lie, I used up
leaked cover.
I use it up essentially, man.
He's been working out.
His bottom half is awfully svelte there. I like that. I think again, as a human being who wasted a lot of time, a lot of man hours on recruiting my 12th year dynasty class, while at an SEC college, playing a lot of those video games. I am now an adult with children and a business, so I do not play them anymore, but I also love the game. But there's something about our media that loves that game, and if they start planting stories, it just comes. Like people go nuts for the stories, and I think it was brilliant. I'm going to try to
figure out how to play with a YouTube audience here. I mean, there's got to be a way, right?
Yeah, look, I am so old and boring that like my PS3 is not connected to the internet. But I also have 2 kids I'm trying to keep off the internet. So yeah, grow up, says Bo. I think you can absolutely play college football on the internet with a bunch of audience members. I think that absolutely could happen. We could get a whole tournament going. That's
what I'm saying.
It's all about the athletic quarterback, like you always say, Mike.
And that's how I got into football, is these video games. And I think they're doing a disservice to the future of the sport, fans getting involved in it. Without this game being
it's coming back
here, you know what I mean?
It's coming back. They're just teasing us with content there. It's a marketing campaign last night, is what I think. The question is, so you're not a guy who grew up playing ball, is what I'm hearing.
What? No, before I even played the actual sport, I played. My dad got me Madden and my mom got mad at him because I didn't know anything about football, but he introduced me to the game via Madden. And then we started watching it, and then I started playing it.
Oh, I loved Madden.
That was the progression.
I was a Sega kid in the 90s because I wanted the college football game and Madden and FIFA. Like, those are the games I wanted when I was a kid. So I ended up being but I will tell you this. I came to the game through NFL Films. That's probably how I came to football, was NFL Films putting out those Super Bowl VHS tape from like 1993, 1991. I watched that thing on repeat 1,000 times, and I started watching Don Majkowski as a Packers fan, and then I evolved into a college football fan quickly, and have been, made college football my career. So the college football game where you could like recruit and build yourself, and then like recruit yourself, like that was the best, man. I'm a 6'4", 200. Like I was building myself as Cam Newton before Cam Newton was Cam Newton.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like 6'5", 240-pound quarterback who can runs a 4.4.
I turned ETSU into what Georgia is now. You know what?
I used. I think one time my favorite thing. One of my favorite memories. This is ridiculous. We're remembering video game memories here. I remember making myself a 6'1", 380-pound fullback, and I would just run the triple option.
Yeah.
And just hand it to the big fella, and he just fall forward for like 6 yards every time. Even on like expert mode, you could get him to fall forward. Anyway, all right. All right. What do you think of what else are we talking about here?
The future of college football video games. No, how about Auburn falling apart here? I don't know if it's falling apart or not, but firing their offensive coordinator. Did you see what the defensive coordinator shared? And then a day later, he was out.
Go ahead and tell the audience.
Yeah, right here. I got it but 10 culture killers from Ron Roberts: ego, hypocritical leadership, cynicism, selfishness, poor communication, unclear expectations, lack of listening, lack of trust, unhealthy internal competition, apathy towards culture.
Why would he tweet about Hugh Freeze so directly?
And then he deleted it immediately, and his ass is gone. He's to Florida, which, I'm trying to think the progression there. I think he was Billy Napier's DC at Louisiana. He's worked with the boy wonder down there, their current defensive coordinator. So it makes all the sense in the world, him going to Florida. I think it's big for Florida. I saw a lot of Auburn fans saying, well, by God, if he put this much attention to detail in the 4th and 31, we would have had a hell of a season, that's fair. But I thought he did a really good job. I thought defense wasn't your problem at all.
No, it wasn't.
It was Hugh Freeze in that offense, which he took credit for when it was good. No credit when it was awful. But this is 2 Auburn coaches in a row. And this is pretty much the only comparison you can make between Harsin and Freeze. But 2 Auburn coaches in a row where we come in, you get some coordinators that look solid, and then a year later they're out the door. Now, that doesn't mean Auburn's in dire straits or anything like that, but it ain't good, I don't think. What's your thoughts on all that?
No, I am so shocked and surprised that there are cultural trust issues under Hugh Freeze. Did people get over their skis that he led Liberty to become a good team and beat Arkansas, which has been in shambles basically since that time, and that got him that Auburn job? I mean, did we just have so much faith in that for some reason? And it's not, I don't know. Does that make sense? Okay. So I know a lot about Hugh Freeze. I'm sure you do too. I never understood the risk. Ultimately, I think Hugh Freeze is a solid coach. I think he's going to do a decent job.
They beat Nick Saban twice,
but he never really won big at Ole Miss. He had 5 turnovers against Alabama one game, all of which were like in his own, all of which were like inside Alabama's 40-yard line. Capitalized, won the game. They had the home game where Bo Wallace had a great game, and somehow they won the game. Okay, right. Great. I think he also lost to Memphis that year. I've never seen, it's one thing if you're going to take the ethical risk on Urban Meyer, because Urban Meyer guarantees you a national championship, or at least a team that will compete for one. What I've never understood about Hugh Freeze is taking the risk for 9-3, because he's never been better than that. I think he won 10 games one year, but he's never been, even when he was great. And again, all the things that he did to get that elite recruiting class, which, by the way, we heard all these stories before they got in trouble. We all knew that this was happening. But again, paying players, not amoral, don't care, doesn't bother me. I think all the stuff that he did that was quote-unquote against NCAA violations is all allowed now, which means everybody's caught up to it. So it means they're all playing on the same playing field. What he did with, his wife and some escort, I don't give a shit. That's between you and your family. I don't care. I don't like putting himself in the middle of Title IX investigations of assault victims. I think that's trashy and sleazy and disgusting. And that's what he did at Liberty. So I never understood the risk for really good. I understand the risk for elite, but he's never been elite. And so I'll start how I end. I'll end how I started. I, Michael Braden, am so shocked and appalled that there are trust and culture questions about hypocrisy in a program run by Hugh Freeze.
Do you think that's going to make it hard for him to attract quality coordinators? That now that this is not only Ron Roberts, but Philip Montgomery's got a pretty solid track record, and he's out the door.
He's a veteran coach.
And it was all season, wasn't it? I heard he took over play calling duties for the Georgia game. Now maybe that's because they had some success and he wanted to take credit. I don't know, but.
Baby Billy was in full force in his introductory press conference. I don't know why Baby Billy isn't still in charge of the whole program. So, again, it's one thing. And here's the other difference between Auburn and Ole Miss. And maybe this is changing in Oxford. I don't know. But the difference from when he was in Oxford and when you're at Auburn, Auburn's fishbowl is, and the magnifying glass is so much stronger in Auburn than it is at Oxford. You win 8-9 games and people are going to let you be. Don't flirt with Auburn, Lane. That's not cool. We don't like that. But by and large, if you're a successful football coach and you win more games than not, and you're an 8-9-10 win team most of the time, you're going to be left alone in Oxford. You're going to be left alone.
Well,
in Auburn, you win 8-9 games. People are trying to spend $20 million to get you fired.
Right. So here's where I'm going with it. If they do what Billy Napier did this year, 5-7, is his seat as hot as Billy's appears to be right now in Gainesville, going into 25?
Why wouldn't it be? I mean, expectations were higher.
Nick Saban twice. Because he's got this reputation. I don't know. I mean, I think you're right.
He's got a reputation of being a sleaze bag. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, he's got a reputation that he can compete in the SEC, even though that's not accurate. He's got a losing record. I agree. When I say that, people say, "Well, you're just counting games they took away." That does not. I'm not. No vacated wins in his losing record in the SEC. So
he was never elite. He has never been elite in the SEC, which again makes me question the risk, which has always been my thing on this. Like, okay, you're going to sell your soul a little bit for a guy that's got some shady this and shady that, and don't even start to go back and look at what he did in high school in Memphis. Don't even go back and read what he did to girls at high school in Memphis. It's gross. And
that being said, he almost beat Alabama. He almost beat Georgia. You know what I mean? Like, had he won one of those games, we're sitting here saying they're going to win the whole damn thing one day under Hugh. You know,
and,
like he gets
them up. True though,
he gets them up for these big games. But isn't that? I mean, that's good on his point.
And then you get your ass kicked by New Mexico State.
And isn't that's culture and coaching, right?
Consistency absolutely is culture and coaching.
Right.
Like what makes Kirby Smart and Nick Saban elite? I mean, outside of like recruiting and working hard and attention to detail and knowing good defensive back technique or whatever. Like there's a million reasons why those are great guys. But one of the most important psychological reasons that makes a coach great, and I think Jim Harbaugh did this with Michigan this year, which is remove the human element with a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old dudes. Their frontal cortex has not fully developed yet. We don't always make good decisions when we're between the ages of 18 and 22. And so keeping 85, 18 to 22-year-olds just completely even at all times is one of the greatest magic tricks Nick Saban and Kirby Smart have ever pulled. And so when you have a coach who is like, I don't know how old Hugh Freeze is. What is he, like 65 years old or 58 years old? I don't know how old he is. When you have a coach that doesn't have the ability to keep himself even like that,
54.
I don't know how 54. I don't know how you ask him to do that with 18 to 22-year-olds. I don't like removing the human element and bringing a kid up when he's down and bringing a kid down when he's up and keeping him right in the middle is how you build consistency and culture. And I don't know how, like, that's why Coach O it's not sustainable. You might be able to burst. You might be able to burst and win, right? Like LSU put it all together, you burst and you win. But like it's never been sustainable. We all knew it wasn't sustainable under Coach O. I don't think it's sustainable under Hugh Freeze, even if they do pop up and win a national championship, which they could. But Tennessee is built by a guy that keeps it all right here. Josh Heupel just keeps it all right here. And like Shane Beamer's, that's kind of my question about Shane Beamer. Is
a little too emotional.
A lot up and down with that guy, you know?
I like that though, because we criticize these guys when they're damn robots. At least give me something.
No, I agree on the personality side of things. I'm just saying your message has to be consistent. You've got to be sort of an example all the time.
I will say though, and I'm not like this guy that like all these coaches reach out to, so it's kind of rare, but I've had multiple coaches in the SEC say, what the hell's up with this Shane Beamer? What the hell's his problem? You know, it's like he is not popular among some of his peers. Again, I don't talk to all these coaches or anything, but
we all know Hugh Freeze is in your DMs because Hugh Freeze is in everybody else's DMs.
Yeah.
Hugh Freeze is in every. I know for a fact there's a burner account that I have a conversation with for 8 years. It's clearly Hugh Freeze. So funny. It's so funny. Okay. Anyway, I look, Hugh Freeze. When you build a program on sort of volatility, you can absolutely. This is Jimbo Fisher. Like you can absolutely shoot it to the moon and win a championship and compete at a high level, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah,
it's not sustainable in my opinion.
Let me ask you this before we wrap up here. Blake Baker to LSU, is that
that's a big move?
You think? I'm seeing that a lot of people say that. I'm not buying it. I mean,
I really like it. Why don't you like it?
I think it's a loss. Certainly, I'm not trying to, sugarcoat it or anything, but I don't know. I mean, he got his ass ran at Miami, didn't he? And
he made Missouri's defense better in 1 year, and they were really good again the next year.
Now, see, this year I think they took a big step back with a lot of experience coming back.
Well, I mean, but they totally shut down Tennessee and Josh Heupel's offense. They totally shut down. I mean, Kentucky wasn't special this year. Shut them down. Shut down South Carolina. I mean, they played well against Georgia as well as anybody has, other than Alabama. I mean, they gave up a bunch of stuff to Jaden Daniels, but who didn't? So I don't know. Like they still had one of the best seasons in school history, and the defense wasn't terrible and totally dominated Tennessee.
Well, again, I'm not saying he's bad, but I mean, I don't know. I just think LSU, Brian Kelly. I thought they would get Jim Leonard or some Dave Aranda type. I don't think he's that level at all.
I think you're underselling him a little bit. I think they hired him and he fixed some problems right away, and they've been pretty good on that side for 2 straight years. He's going to be working with what should be slightly better talent. And I think, first of all, anything's better than Mike Denbrock.
Right.
So
wait, no, not Denbrock.
Not Denbrock.
Matt House.
Matt House. Yeah, sorry. Anything's better than Matt House. So I think the bar is so low on that side of the ball. Now he's got work to do because of all those guys that are going to be gone. But I think it's a pretty good move. If I'm
I think it's a bigger loss for Mizzou, I guess, than a gain for LSU. I know that's difficult to understand, but that's
no. I agree. I agree with that. I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. Alex Grinch better than Matt House? Ooh, that's a good one. That's 2 really shitty defensive coordinators.
But that does not necessarily hinder my expectations for Mizzou either, because I thought Mizzou's offense was going to be a lot better than the defense this year. Missouri's, I think that played a part in his decision. I really do. I think he knew we're losing a lot on defense at Mizzou, and my stock's going to cool a little bit. I think that played a factor.
I think who they go get is going to be interesting. So you mentioned Jim Leonard. If Jim Leonard, who's at Illinois right now, if they can go get, he's just an assistant, but he's used to be one of the hottest names in coordinating. He was a Wisconsin grad. He was going to be the head coach at Wisconsin before they got Luke Fickell from Cincinnati. I think if you go get Jim Leonard, I think it's a power play by Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri. It doesn't mean that, like DJ Smith elevating him isn't necessarily good for the team, but do you go show some sort of weight, right? Like was it Arkansas that hired Barry Odom after he was fired by Missouri's alma mater? Like that feels like a power move. It didn't work out, so that's part of this. But
no, it worked out. I thought Barry Odom. He
was fine for a year. I don't think it was great, but
their biggest wins because of Barry Odom.
Going to get Jim Leonard, I think, is sort of it shows everybody that people that you got some clout on the
Eli worth $9+ million that he's getting paid now.
Probably not,
but I think that's more a reflection of the coaching market, right? They're all getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, they're about to sign a TV deal, but the college football playoff is about to sign a TV deal with ESPN and Fox for $40 million per game. Right, we're probably talking about $5-6 billion contract.
Hey, Hobson just gave us $2. Who's Bama's new defensive coordinator? Kevin Steele retired. Maybe Lane Kiffin was right. He wasn't a defensive coordinator anyway. It's got to be T-Rob, right?
I guess. Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't. Again, these coaching searches. I'm actually headed over to the Opryland Hotel tonight to go mill about with some assistant coaches.
Nice. Ask them for us.
Drink some beer. I'll see if I can do some digging and find out for you guys. So, but I think again, Bama should have its pick, especially on that side of the ball. You should be able to pick who you want if you're Bama. Although we saw some struggles. A&M had this struggle too. Like they had some struggles luring some folks.
Right.
In the last search. So we'll see. Y'all stay safe with this jerk face storm rolling through. Where's Liquid Flames at? Where are you at, Liquid?
He's a Florida guy. I don't know if he lives down there or not.
I question your logic and decision making. Be a Florida fan, but that's fine. It's fine. We love the Gators. Go Billy Napier. Go Gators. Okay. Anyway, if you want to check out the top 25, make sure you check out Athlon Sports preseason rankings. We got Texas A&M at 27. Auburn, Florida, and Kentucky are just outside of the top 30. Then you go down to
Liquid Flames is in Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. There you go. Well, stay safe, everybody out there. It's been raining here forever. I'm assuming that's headed down towards your direction. Arkansas, Mississippi State, South Carolina, of course, on the next tier, and then Vanderbilt at the bottom. We got a whole offseason to hang out and to spend time discussing these things. A deep, in-depth sort of look at Oklahoma, the program, the growth over the last 20 years, how good they've been, what they're good at now, their NIL, their recruiting base, Brent Venables' evolution, and their star quarterback, who somebody – Josh McQuiston told me some extremely high praise for their freshman quarterback, Jackson Arnold. Very much in the way Tennessee fans feel about Nico is how Oklahoma fans feel about their quarterback. So check that out on the 440 Sports YouTube page.
I heard he's going to USC.
440 Sports on the YouTube page. Go check that out. So unless that broke in the last 30 minutes, that's not true.
I know. That's the rumor. There's always rumors this time.
All you do is traffic and rumor. You never put a name on nothing. All right, everybody. I got to go deal with this Mike Vrabel fallout. So we do appreciate you guys listening and hanging out. If you get it, if you want to check us out via podcast, SEC Football Live, make sure you check out all of Mike's work, of course, at that SEC podcast, and you can check out SEC Football Live every single Tuesday at 1:00 Eastern time. And a bunch of extra cool stuff for you SEC fans over at 440 Sports. We're going to serve it all up all off season long. So come on over. We do appreciate you guys. Mike, good to see you, my man. Let's go get a beer. What do you think?
I got a bottle of bourbon with your name on it, just waiting for you.
I know. All right.
I'm going to drink it if we goes any longer.
No, you don't. You still owe me another bottle if you start drinking that sucker. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for hanging out. For Mike, I am Braden. We will talk to you guys next week. Peace.